Hello, everyone. Hi, Stan Craig. I'm back with you again. That's an inside joke. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm back with you again to share with you a very special webinar today. And it's a webinar based on a principle. And the principle is in order to be very effective in every sales presentation, that sales presentation needs to be tied to a current interest or at least current information shared by the client. It's really important that you're able to relate what you're doing to what's happening in the client's life. And this presentation today demonstrates exactly how to use what's happening around you as part of your sales presentation. So today we're going to talk about, as an example, John McCain. John McCain exit exactly right, which is so very important, a right exit. And when you see a good example, just recognize that that's what we want you to do. And there's probably no better example than John McCain. What a great story. The truth is, not one of us sells in a vacuum. That is, every sales presentation takes place within an environment. There is always something happening in and around both the one who's making the presentation and the one who's receiving the presentation, the client. And when you can get both of those things aligned, that is the experience of the presenter and the experience of the one you're presenting to, when you get those aligned exactly, you have a much more better opportunity, a much more significant opportunity to be sure that what you're marketing touches the need of the client. Because none of us sells in a vacuum. So align your interests. And here's how to do that. The news is already out. The news is out there. And one of the things that disturbs me sometimes, Gloria and I have 6 children, you've heard me say that before, is that there are some of my children who do not read the newspaper. They just choose not to read the newspaper. They choose not to watch the news. They choose not to do that for a variety of reasons. And that's probably okay for them because they're not in a selling profession. However, other children of ours read it like their dad, read more than one newspaper a day, and follow the news, whether it's on the television, the radio, newspapers, or magazines. Because the news is out, and if you want to make a presentation, if you want to have a conversation that's relevant, you have to be sure that you understand that the news is out there and other people know what you want to know as well. Because no matter your profession, the news around us influences what we say. Sometimes it adds to our vocabulary, sometimes it adds to our insight, and sometimes it is exactly what we need to talk to our clients. The death of a prominent person, that's always newsworthy. And because it is a death, it allows us to talk about those things that we market to our clients. Financial services are very involved in pointing toward the future. And one future we all have that we all are aware of is that someday it will come to an end. A prominent person, when they die, it is a great reminder that we all should be probably more prepared for the end of life than we are. If you ignore it, then you get no benefit. If you learn from it, you can understand how best to make that connection between what you're offering and the current client or prospect's need, or at least their awareness. Don't ignore the news. Pay attention. Your clients and prospects are already primed for the conversation, already primed because they are already hearing a vocabulary, already hearing discussions around the topic that you're going to tie your presentation to. And that's really important. Don't ignore the obvious. What's the obvious biggest news story this week? What's the obvious biggest story, whether it's print, television, magazines, or radio? What is the obvious story? This is it. Senator John McCain. This is a political story. It's a personal story. It's a family story. It's a story of a military hero. John McCain combined so many things into his life. He lived a very complicated life. He had what some would say were wonderful things happen to him, and he had things that he said were tragic. But he said in his letter he wrote, he wouldn't change a thing. He's grateful for everything that happened in his life. And he's thankful for it, he says. Well, you know John McCain's story. If you don't, then you need this webinar more than anybody else, because the whole point of this is you need to know the news. So what was part of the news about John McCain? It was his nickname. Nearly every news story, whether it was about his politics, his military career, his family, running for president, his home life, everything at one time mentioned his nickname. So here's a quiz. How well prepared are you to have a discussion about the products we're going to talk about and every product going forward that you want to talk about by being aware of the news? Now, I know it's been a busy week. You've had a lot going on, but let me just tell you, this has been the #1 news story everywhere. So what is John McCain's nickname? Take the time to write it down and to send it in. That's a marvelous thing about this. You can just drop it in. What is his nickname? Do you know his nickname? Write it down. Just take a second and send it off. Mark and Vanessa and others, we'll just see how many of you got it right. So would you please? And if you do not know, just put DK me, right? DK me. I don't know. That'll tell us at least how many of you are listening and participating today, which is always helpful to me as I put these together. So what was John McCain's nickname? Maverick. For some of you who are my age, Maverick was a Western character. And some of you think, oh my gosh, I have no clue what he's talking about. Some of you will know. Maverick. Maverick means instead of following the herd, this person is an outlier. And John McCain was outside the norm. He did not follow the crowd. Not in anything in his life was he just a crowd follower. He was always standing apart, a little bit different than everyone else. He was a maverick. If you've been listening to the news, you know that was his nickname. For example, why did I know it? Because it's mentioned in every story. Not because I'm a specialist in John McCain, but I do what I'm telling you to do. Pay attention. So, okay, Stan, I saw John McCain was in the news. Maybe I didn't pick up his nickname, but I do know what the news is. So let me ask you, what was the news about John McCain? What was the news that specifically applies to what you do every day? What was the news about John McCain that will tie you and your presentations to your client? Well, he passed away, right? Wrong. That's not the news. That was the story, but that's not the news that you're going to relate to your client. We all are going to pass away. Every one of us needs to prepare for the future when the future doesn't include us anymore, right? I mean, we all know we're going to die at some time, and to not prepare is to be silly. We prepare for everything, right? We prepare for a trip to the grocery store. Do you have your list? We prepare to take the car to the garage. What am I going to ask them to do? We prepare for going to the car wash, get all that junk out before they see what kind of messy, we do all that. Why not prepare for the end of life? John McCain planned his exit exactly. It wasn't that he passed away. It wasn't that his family was near him. We all would like that. Not one of us wants to simply, well, I'd really prefer to die in a hospital room with needles and tubes all sticking in me and with strangers staring at me and waking me up every few minutes to tell me what time it is. Come on. We all want to die with our family with us, but we don't because we don't plan our exit very well. That's not news. He had an aggressive brain cancer. We all knew that. That's been the news for some time. But that wasn't the news that's going to tie us to our clients. Where was he from? Arizona. At least he was a senator from the state of his adopted state, Arizona. Is that big news? Well, it is if you're in Arizona, but for most of us, that's not the news that's all that significant. He was a fighter pilot. That's big news, but only if we're talking to other fighter pilots. And my guess is that's a pretty small group of our prospecting list is fighter pilots. So that's probably not what's going to make our presentations relevant. Here's the news. The important news was implied and stated about his exit. That's why the title of this presentation is clearly John McCain, Exit Exactly Right. His exit is what's so memorable about John McCain. And in the news stories about his passing away, about his family, about his illness, about the place where he lived, his ranch, his home, his career, all those things come down to how he planned his exit. John McCain, Senator John McCain. He's a clear example of a caring father and a caring husband. Cindy was his second wife. They had 6 children together. That is, not 6 children with each of them as husband and wife, but they brought 6 children to the marriage. But he's a clear example of a caring father and husband because he planned his own funeral. Listen, folks, how many times do families get together? All in-laws, outlaws, friends, and relatives get together. We get together at a wedding, usually, in most cultures, and we get together at a funeral in most cultures. Weddings, we plan carefully down to the color of the ribbon on the bride's bouquet. Funerals, we don't plan at all. Which is the more intimate? Where you talk about someone's life and legacy, their last hours, the last memory they'll ever have. Remember, people say, well, first impressions are the most important. No, a last impression lasts forever. You can never change it. It's important that you plan your funeral, but we don't, right? You know that I've written a book called ForeTalk that is all about advanced care planning, everything you need to know about it. ForeTalk, it's on Amazon, F-O-R-E, capital T-A-L-K. It covers everything you need to know about advanced care planning. And one of the sections is how to plan your own funeral or memorial service. And in the back of every chapter, there's a section you fill out. So you can write down all of these things that you want in your own funeral, in your own memorial service, just like John McCain. He decided who he wanted to even speak at his funeral, which is what you should do, what passages you want read, what songs you want, what music you'd like. You know, there are all kinds of great stories we could talk about people who planned their own funerals. And there's a lot of sad stories about people who did not. He did. He wrote a series of last letters. The very first chapter in ForeTalk says, here's how to start. Write the letters that you want your family and loved ones to read when you're gone. How do we know John McCain did this? Because his partner of many, many years, his publicist, business partner, read his letter, Dear Fellow Americans. He not only wrote a last letter to the meaningful people in his life, but he wrote a last letter to my fellow Americans. ForeTalk says how important that is. I've written a letter to my wife to read, for her to read after I'm no longer here to tell her how much I love her. I've written letters to my children to tell them how important they have been to me in my life, how dear they are to me, how I treasure every moment that we've shared, and to my grandchildren, and to my yet unborn great-grandchildren. I've written notes to them. I want them to know who their granddaddy was, and I want them to know how important they are, and what my standards are, what my hopes and dreams are for them, what my morals and values are. Write the letter. ForeTalk could tell you how to do that. He wrote his last letters. That means he exited exactly right. He also completed all of his advanced care planning. Everything that he needed to do, he did in advance. His family didn't have to scramble around. His daughter didn't have to say, oh my gosh, what would Dad wanted? His wife didn't say, oh, if only, if only. It was done because he did his planning. And then he went home when his treatment was futile. Some of you have heard my story that my brother was in the hospital for 41 days and then he passed away. Every day he was treated, it was futile. The reason it was is because he had stage 4 lung cancer, and you cannot cure stage 4 lung cancer. In fact, I didn't have any knowledge then, not the knowledge I have now, or we would have said to the doctor, and this is what I repeat over and over again in every seminar, if you are in a possible terminal situation, if your life could come to an end, and the doctors and staff are proposing tests and treatments, the question to ask, write this down, be sure you remember it, is, doctor, is this test or procedure or this operation or this treatment going to prolong my life? Is it going to be a bridge to healing? Or is it simply going to prolong my death? Is it going to be a bridge to healing or prolong my death? John McCain's treatments were not going to get rid of his breast cancer, of his brain cancer. Sorry, I got my B's mixed up with his brain cancer. That treatment wasn't going to help. So he went home to be with his family. He planned his exit exactly. And in doing so, he created a positive legacy for his family. These last days and this week is going to be carried out to perfection because John planned it all. That's why we call it advanced care planning. NetLaw, personal, digital, done. This is what we all need to get done. This is some of the most personal stuff we can ever do. What does it consist of? Well, first, it's the Final Four. We talk about the Final Four every year, right? Especially if you're a college basketball player. What are the Final Four when it comes to advanced care planning? These are the medical documents. We also market them in the form of NetLaw MD and NetLaw Student. These Final Four are key documents that every person over 18 needs to get done now. It includes your living will. Your living will says, what kind of medical treatment do I want? And more importantly, what do I not want? The living will states what kind of medical care I want. When you say, well, why do you have to write that down? Because if you're living, you write this down and explain to your medical staff and team what care I want. Well, why do I have to do that if I'm living? Because you can be kept alive and not be living. There are 30,000 people in American hospitals and nursing homes today who are being kept alive in a vegetative state. Wow. They didn't sign up for that. No one wanted that. The problem is they didn't say that they did not. And there was no one to speak for them and to say that that's not what they want. When you're unconscious, incapable of speaking, when you cannot have cognitive thoughts about what your future should be, you've got to have a durable power of attorney for health care. That is someone to speak for you when you cannot speak for yourself. And an accident, anesthesiology, drugs and treatments can render you unable to make decisions. A coma can do that. Intensive care can do that. Cardiac care can do that. So who will speak for you? That's why you've got to have this durable power of attorney for health care done. It enforces your living will. It says what you want with someone to speak for you when you can't speak for yourself. Not only just in your finances, but in your health care, but in your finances, because someone has to write checks. So who are you going to authorize to pay your bills, to take care of your ongoing expenses for your house, for your car, for your family? Who's going to be able to do that? Your person that you name, this person that you trust, is the person who can take care of your bills when you and perhaps even other members of your family can't do it because of the tragedy of what's occurring. And then you need a HIPAA authority. A HIPAA authority says who can learn about your medical condition and your treatment. Who do you want to give that information to? And I see I left out the I when we typed this up. The Health Information and Protection Act is really important. It tells your medical staff, the doctors, when you are no longer able to, if you're unconscious, from some of the reasons we mentioned, who you want to get information or not. Now, if you're unconscious, you can't say, I want my wife to get it. I want my spouse to get it. I want my children to have it. You need to have someone who can speak for you, and the HIP authority names the persons that you want to get information. And only those who you name can get it. That's why this final four is so important. Your living will, your two durable powers of attorney, one for healthcare, one for finance, and who do you want to get information, your HIP authorities. Everybody over 18 needs that. You can market that as a part of the whole NetLaw package, because what you really want to do for the family is not just take care of what's important to the person, but what's important to the family. The family's future. And where does that come from? It comes from this last will and testament for both spouses. It comes from having a revocable living trust for immediate distributions. You see, if you die without a revocable living trust, the terms of the will are followed by the executor, except that in many cases it has to go to probate court, and that can take a long time. And it's costly for the attorneys to do that. In my brother's case, it took 2 years because it was challenged. Oh my goodness gracious. If he had had a revocable living trust, he would have saved thousands of dollars and many, many months of heartbreak for his beneficiaries and for his wife and for the children that he loved. But he didn't. You need to have a last will and testament. Remember, you get one for both spouses, for this person, that person, for this person and their intended others. It's 2 wills for whomever you want to have share a will with you. And a revocable living trust for the distributions of the assets. Your will says, here's where the assets are going to go. They go in the revocable living trust so they can be paid out immediately without the distributions being hampered by probate. This is your NetLaw advantage. John McCain has reminded us that there's a way to do an exit exactly right, and you can make that true for every prospect and every client you talk to, and for your own family. So here's what you get. You get the complete medical package. You know that. You get the final 4 for every family. For every family member. You get it for both spouses, both husband and wife, or both partners when you purchase the NetLaw package. And for an extra, you could buy it for the medical package, the final 4, for everyone over 18, whether they be children at home, children working away, anyone else who doesn't have an estate. But I guarantee they will need these documents if they go to the hospital. And I guarantee the family will be miserable, and so will the patient, if they ever become unconscious during treatment or an accident or an illness. The complete medical package, plus you get complete wills for 2. Get the last will and testament for 2. That's included in the package. You also get the complete revocable living trust. By complete, it also includes a pet trust. That means that you can fund, if you choose to, set aside funds to pay for the care of your pet as long as that pet's living. You'll also get the family vault. The family vault is where you store not only all of your NetLaw documents, it's where you store every other document that's important to you. For example, you can restore your passport. You can store your driver's license. You can store your insurance policies. Your CPA can email the taxes in a digital form to your vault. Or if you do them yourself, you can email them to your vault, just as you email them off to the government. Then you don't have to have drawers full of past income tax statements. You got them all in your family vault. You can save grandma's recipes, the wedding pictures, or if you're like my wife, Gloria, you can save Mother's Day cards and anniversary cards and I'm thinking about you cards. You can save notes from your grandkids. Everything that's important to you, you can store. If you can scan it, you can store it in your family vault. And not only that, but you have ready access. Again, what good is all this stuff if you never know where it is? I'm telling you, I will do seminars and I will say to folks, how many of you have a will? And a few hands will go up, and then I'll say, how many of you know where it is? Fewer hands will stay up. And how many of you have updated it in the last 3 to 5 years? And hardly any hands will be left up. That's because they didn't have access. If they had access, they would have updated it when the time came. But they didn't because, no, I got to go find it. I got to go see an attorney, got to get all this changed. I got to pay more money. If you don't have ready access, your documents become lost. Do you know what a filing cabinet is? It's a place where you lose things alphabetically. It's in the file somewhere. Did I put it under W for will, L for last will? Did I put it under NetLaw? Where is that stuff? Listen, you have it ready because it is digital, personal, digital, done. And the important thing is not only do you have access, but you keep it. That $8 per month is critical. I do not want to have to show up at the hospital and not have my documents with me. But I guarantee you, the last thing I'm going to do is go run in the door and say, oh, where are the documents? Where's my living will? I'm not going to do that. Man, if I'm in medical emergency, I want to get there as quick as I can. I'm not going to stop and dig through the filing cabinet. You don't have to. It's right there. It's online. You can have the documents. You can have them printed out. And you can have access to them when you need them. And that's ongoing. That $8 a month means that if I'm in Europe, I've got my passport stuff on file. Means if I'm in an automobile accident anywhere in the world, in a rent-a-car or my own car, all I have to do is tap into it. And I've got my auto insurance, my registration, my driver's license. That family vault, as you know, is important. And the ongoing access is critical. And then you can update as change happens. The reason most people haven't updated is it's difficult to do. It's not when it's digital. I've said many times to you before, when Gloria and I moved to Florida, we simply changed our address and all of our document was now populated for the state of Florida, not Kentucky. Gosh, this is a real advantage, isn't it? Not only that, but it's done inexpensively. Every dad, I'm a dad, every husband, proud to be a husband. I want to exit exactly right. Every wife, every mom, every granddad, every grandmom, we all want to exit exactly right. And it's so important that you help your clients do that. So how do you do that? One, you purchase these documents today. You don't put it off till tomorrow. You don't just think about it, you do it. Listen. No family left behind includes your family. You need to do this for yourself. Purchase these documents today. The Final Four and the Family Future. You've got to have all those done together for NetLaw. Personal, digital, done, and done today. Listen, by getting this done, you can save hundreds and even thousands of dollars. You'll save money initially because you're getting it done far less expensively than any attorney can do it for you. If you need to see an attorney because your state is more complicated, still do NetLaw. Take these documents with you to the attorney and have him add whatever things you need done. If there's a complication to your estate or a complication in your estate or a complication because of your state, that is the state where you live, you'll save hundreds of billable hours, not hundreds, but hundreds of dollars in billable hours by taking these documents to him. That's what the Fort Talk book does as well. Fill out the pages in the book and you're done. Plus, you may save thousands of dollars in unwanted, unnecessary, and even harmful medical treatment by having that Big Four taken care of. I don't want this, mom didn't want that, and we're not going to do it. You also should tell every client and yourself you've got 60 days to complete these documents. What? Wait a minute, Stan. Nobody ever said 60 days. I thought I had a year. You do, and so does your client. The truth is, you don't want them to know that. Why? Because procrastination settles in. One of the saddest things for me about NetLaw is you can sell this to your client. Your client can pay you their money for it. You can get paid your commission on selling it, and the client never get the documents done. That to me is an ethical lapse. I don't want to sell and not deliver. I don't want to make promises I'm not fulfilling. I don't want to take money and then not give the product that the client paid for. So if you tell them they have 60 days to complete it, guess what? Write yourself a tickler, Tickler, a tickler file within 30 days to call back after it's closed and say, by the way, I just want to be sure you've got this done. And in 60 days, do it again. You say, well, that's a lot of work. Let me just tell you, if you don't do it, you run the risk of a son or daughter calling and say, hey, mom and dad told me they purchased this through you. I see the canceled check where they paid you. Where are the documents? Where are the documents? And you saying, I don't think they did them. What? They paid you for it, but they never did the documents? No, they never filled them out. I don't know how you'd feel, but I'd feel terrible about saying that. It may get me off the hook, but my integrity would really be hurting. So call back in again. And you know why you want to call back? Because if they didn't open the account and get that vault going, you can ask those vault marketing questions, which is like to put your spouse's life insurance in the vault. You can't sell it unless you ask the question, right? Would you like to put your guaranteed retirement income plan in the vault? What, a guaranteed retirement income plan? No, not your Social Security. That's not guaranteed. Not your pension. That's not guaranteed. But an annuity contract, that's a guaranteed retirement income plan. You don't have one? Gosh, I ought to come back and talk to you about that. You see, if your client gets this done, you have the opportunity to go back and get referrals. Who else should we talk to about this? Why don't we add the medical package for your students, for your friends, for other people? Why not your mom and dad? If they don't want to do an estate, just let's do the medical stuff. If you don't get this done, you're going to lose not only your own sense of self-worth and integrity, but you're going to lose the opportunity to sell more stuff, to be in a better financial advisor relationship with your client. Tell them it's 60 days. You and I both know it's not, but just take 60 days to complete the documents. If he says, I can't get it done, how much more time do you need? If you say, and you got a year to complete it, everybody will forget it. Frankly, some of you have purchased the plans and you haven't done it yet. Keep the access available. Pay that $8 a month. I've said to you before, I spend more than that at Starbucks. And that coffee is going to last just while I'm tasting it, and it will be gone shortly thereafter. But having access to these documents, if I choke on the coffee or something bad goes into my body and I get to the hospital, I want to be sure that we've got my living will and other documents there. Keep the access available. Pay that $8. If I'm in Europe, I want to be sure that we can access my documents for passport. If I'm in a car wreck, I want to be sure I've got my insurance and all that information there. Add the medical package. You know what this means. Now, NetLaw offers a one-time payment for all the big four in the medical package. Far less, of course, than the full estate plan. Everybody over 18 needs that. Everybody over 18, man and woman, boy and girl over 18, because at 18 they become a legal person, needs to have these documents in place. The HIPAA, the living will, the durable power of attorney for healthcare and finance. NetLaw student, NetLaw MD, you need these done. Talk to Mark, talk to Vanessa, get this done. And it's a great way to go back and do an add-on with your clients because everybody needs it. And fill out the family vault. That becomes really a valuable tool. You can't just have things sitting in cardboard boxes in the attic. You can't keep things in the back drawer in the nightstand. You can't keep things sitting in the cabinet somewhere or in the attic. Goodness sakes. Everything ought to be kept digitally and in digital storage in your family digital vault. Help the clients do that. You know, inspiration can come from so many sources. The death of John McCain and his careful preparation during his last days that is being demonstrated so clearly in the news media. His preparation is so obvious. Let his life and his death be an inspiration for you to share with your clients, and don't let the moment pass by. Just don't let this moment pass by. Moments are called moments for a reason. They're only here for a few seconds, for a few minutes, or maybe for this week. Don't let it pass by. Take action this week. Use the John McCain story as an example of all other news stories that you can use to share your opportunity for your client to get their needs met in a unique way. Not too long ago, I did a program on 212 degrees. Remember, water is just water at 211 degrees. It got all the way up to 211 degrees, and if it didn't get one more degree, it would never be steam and have all the power that steam can bring. Be a 212 degree person. Add that one more call, that one more effort, that one more distinctive. That's where the power comes from. Your clients and your prospects, they're already thinking about this because they're hearing the news. They're reading the newspaper. They're surrounded by the death of John McCain. And you have a solution to a widely publicized problem. Affordable, available, and important to everybody you speak of. So remember, exit exactly right. John McCain gave a great example of that. And don't wait. Don't wait. In addition to my book, For Talk, where I talk about all of this, I have a Facebook page called For Talk. I have a LinkedIn For Talk column where I talked about John McCain this week. And one thing I made clear is don't just think about it. People say, I'll think about it, and thinking about it is never done. It's just like saying our thoughts and prayers are with you. Well, what good are thoughts and prayers when you're suffering? Especially if you say it and don't do it. Thinking about it is not the same as doing it. Do it now. The news will become old really fast. Gloria and I just got back from a few days of vacation. We'll be taking a longer vacation next week. But guess what? I didn't have the newspapers delivered every day. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, our local newspaper, or Barron's, or The Economist, none of those came to the house. Why? I didn't want to read yesterday's news. Who cares? I don't care about yesterday's newspapers. I'm not going to go back and look at them. And frankly, in a couple of weeks, the news about John McCain will be old news. You need to be talking about it now. Remember, every webinar is currently available. This webinar has been recorded. It's online. All of my slides are there. They're downloadable. And every past webinar that I've done, 212 degrees, the Black Panther, ways to sabotage your business, all of those are sitting here in this archive, and you can review them anytime. When I'm at conventions or doing meetings in offices or for other meetings, people will say, well, Stan, I don't get to listen every Wednesday at the time you're on. You don't have to. They're recorded for you. And if you want to use them as recruiting, if you want to use them to train your team, remember they're available all the time online. And all the slides are there for you to use in whatever way you wish. Remember, this is not a product that is registered. It's a product you can use to talk to anyone. Well, this has been a great time today to chat with you about John McCain and about doing things exactly right, about the Maverick and what we can learn, how John McCain planned his exit exactly right. We're here to help. I want to help you. That's part of the reason why I do these webinars every week. It's part of the reason why I answer your calls. Part of the reason why I respond to your females. No, I respond to your emails. Goodness gracious. Can you tell this is the fourth time I've done this today? Well, I can. I'm so glad that you joined me, and I trust that this will be helpful to you, that the principles of using the news to market your products can be helpful every day from now on. Wherever you are, no matter who you're talking to, this will work. We're here to help. Call Mark or Vanessa or Mary or anyone else. We're here to help you. Gary and Mark, thank you so much for helping me get this done. And Mark, I know you're ready there. You already know who's been answering the questions correctly, and you have more. So thank you too, Mark. I appreciate what you do every day. I'm glad to be on the team. This is Stan Craig for NetLaw. Have a wonderful week.